Hello?
Brian.
Is this Steven Van Zandt?
It is.
Steven Van Zandt on WFAS Orlando in the morning. This is wild. How you doing, man?
Very good, very good. How are you?
I'm doing a lot better now. I'm actually on crutches. I blew a tendon in my leg, but since you called, I'm dancing. Just nobody could see it.
Oh, that's rough. That's rough.
Steve, we're over here in Westchester. We're 15 minutes away. You got a great thing going on in the city, and really, I would love for you to share with the listeners what's going on with the Rascals.
Well, it's been kind of a dream come true. We not only reunited the band after 40 years, but we wrote a Broadway show for them where they kind of an interesting new idea.
Okay.
You're occasionally going to hear my dog bark over there. It's a combination of a concert and a story.
Is it like a bio on them? Is it how they got together?
Yeah. We filmed them telling their own story.
Okay.
And then we filmed actors acting out a few scenes from their career. And we put that on a gigantic screen behind them. So they come out, they do the concert, they'll do three songs or so.
Okay.
And then the stage goes dark, and then this huge screen comes on, and they speak directly to the audience, you know?
So is it like a question and answer type thing?
No. They're just telling their story.
Okay,
it's like
got you.
It's like it's almost like a picture them speaking into the camera, telling their story, their career, individually. And they each come on the screen at different times, telling different parts of their story, and then it goes back and forth between that and the actual four guys on stage performing the most definitive concert they've ever done. I mean, it's
Sure.
28 songs or so, and no medleys, no showbiz. It's the real thing. So you get the integrity of a rock concert, but then much more than that because they're telling their story. And of course, the story of the Rascals is also the story of the '60s. So you have that entire decade and all of those major events that took place, in our culture represented. In the show. And
so this is kind of like a cross between the history of music and Little Steven produces the Rascals behind the music.
Yeah. I would say something like that, you know? Or you could picture it like Jersey Boys with the Four Seasons actually in it.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of like it's a new idea, and boy, is it going over big. We opened this week, and it's a limited run. It's a 15-show limited run on Broadway at Richard Rodgers Theater, and the place is going crazy. We're getting like 3 standing ovations during the night, and
wow.
And people are dancing, and people have never seen people dancing on Broadway in the aisles. I mean, it's really something. And they're such charming guys and such individual sort of idealistic. The music is so idealistic and hopeful and optimistic that no matter what mood you come into that theater in, you leave feeling good. You leave feeling optimistic about life, and that's not so easy these days,
No, especially in light of what's going on in Boston.
Exactly. So, people who not only need the escape from life, but also it's more than that. There's something bigger about what was represented by this group than the group themselves even. You just have a sense of idealism and optimism that the 60s represented. And you think to yourself, it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be so depressing every day. It doesn't have to be so hopeless. And this show really transports you to a different place for 2 hours, and you leave just with a smile on your face.
You're a longtime fan of the Rascals. You inducted them into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's right.
When you embarked on your solo tour, didn't Dino Danelli play drums for you?
Yes. The first time I was brought in to reunite them was 1982 by a mutual friend, and they weren't quite ready to reunite at that time.
Okay.
But I did meet them all, and from that meeting, Dino became the drummer of my solo band for 2 years. Was
this play that you wrote for the Rascals, was this kind of like a dream come true from a childhood musician standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, it's a dream come true from a position of, first of all, many things. I mean, first, wanting just out of gratitude, wanting to say thank you to them because they were the first rock band I ever saw, and extremely influential by being the first blue-eyed soul, rock group. They were really, very much invented that thing for us. They were the ultimate bar band, the ultimate cover band, the ultimate archetype of what we all were going to become. All the groups at that time, it's all mostly the British invasion that was taking over the charts. The Beatles, the Stones,
Sure.
the Who, the Kinks, Animals, Yardbirds. All of those groups were basically white kids imitating black music.
Yes.
But the Rascals were just one step closer to home by not being British. So they were very, very close to the source of that wonderful, gospel church soul music thing that we would all embrace, almost simultaneously
Right.
with them. The real thing. The Temptations and Sam and Dave and Otis Redding and all of the Motown acts, and but they were like the interpreters for us 13, 14, 15-year-old white kids. They were the introduction to soul music, if you will. I mean, if you go see the E Street Band today, you can trace us directly back to the Rascals.
Yeah, I mean, from Bruce adding the horns, I mean, when Born to Run broke with 10th Avenue Freeze Out, which you arranged, you could hear that soul in the music, and it just took off from there. You work with Southside Johnny, your solo work, songs like Until the Good Is Gone, you feel that soul. Yeah,
that was just my thing all along, and part of Bruce's thing as well. And honestly, they were the ones who introduced us to that whole concept of a hybrid of rock and soul.
It's been, God, over 30 years. You're on stage. I actually saw you with the E Street Band on my honeymoon at Gillette Stadium.
Oh, great.
Oh, yeah, and you sounded phenomenal. You did Drift Away, which blew my mind. There's a story behind that, but do you still feel you're learning stuff? Do you still get ideas when you're on stage, like, man, we can do something with this?
As far as the E Street Band goes, or
with your own stuff? I mean, you just wrote the play about the Rascals. You're busy with other stuff. Do you take things from the road where it's like, I'm going to set this aside and do something?
Well, yeah. I wake up, every day. My whole thing is work. I'm the ultimate working class guy. I mean, I get up and go to work every day, and my work is creating. Doing my best to create greatness. I chase it. I support it. I seek it out. I search for it. Whether it's new bands that I can put on my radio show,
Sure.
Underground Garage, or whatever it may be. I'm involved now with a worldwide Battle of the Bands search with the Hard Rock cafes. My foundation is being written right now. My foundation's writing a history of rock and roll for schools.
Great.
Everything I do is just trying to create greatness, support it, and be as productive as I possibly can. That's just my thing. I wake up every day, trying to do good work, and if I can improve things a little bit for the next guy, great.
Are there any new bands out there that you're really behind? Bands that you think have a future?
Well, you know what? The trouble is we have introduced over 500 new bands in the 10 years my radio show's been on.
Okay.
And only a couple have broken through. The Hives, notably, and Jack White, with the White Stripes. But very few. Very, very few have broken through. And the reason is the infrastructure's not there. When we grew up, there was an infrastructure. There was, it was not easy, but
Right.
if you were great, and persistent enough, there was a road to success. There were local radio stations that could play you. There were local clubs you could play in, and then there were showcase clubs nationally. And then you get on that road, and you could slowly build your way up to success. And that's gone. And so I'm trying to rebuild that infrastructure now for the next generation. And we just had the beginnings of it with the radio show. I'm working with the Hard Rock to become possibly a live network internationally.
Okay.
That'll be a big piece of the puzzle. So, you're trying to assemble these pieces. So we got the beginning covered. We got that second stage covered. Now we need that third stage covered, which is touring, hooking up people with sponsorship, and then exposing them visually. We're slowly putting the pieces back together that will hopefully last for another generation, where bands can finally break through again. Because right now it's impossible. I mean, it's very, very difficult for traditional rock and roll, which we now call garage rock,
Right.
to actually break through,
Well, you see with glorified karaoke contests like American Idol and X Factor, and these manufactured, man-made stars, and they don't last because they're crammed down the public's throat and they're quickly forgotten.
Well, that's the story of pop, and maybe always has been. The difference is these days you don't have any development. There's no sense of development, which means you're not going to have a sense of longevity because you're back in that pop era, which for many years we were in a rock era,
right?
From like 65 to 95 or so. A rock era with very different rules. It was all about slowly developing an audience, slowly developing your music, and then you would make some success. I don't know, fourth, fifth album, and that was fine. But now you don't get more than one album, and it's more of a singles world and all that.
Yep. Is that a cyclical thing? Because back in the '60s, it was all about 45s and singles.
Well, it was for a minute, but you couldn't. You couldn't really do that in the rock era.
Okay. Because
the singles became very, very unhip. I mean, once the album became the sort of medium of choice, and that happened probably with Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band in 1967.
Right.
After that, it was different. The rules changed, even though, everybody started off as a singles group. But then the rock era started, and it became albums, and then it's different, Then now you're taking part in a new art form. Still had to do with craft, but it had to do with a little bit more thought and a little bit more care, and maybe albums adding up to more than just a collection of singles. So it was a different set of rules, and now we're back to how it was, where people download singles and move on to the next group, and that's doesn't make for a good career.
What do you think of the sound of music today? Because I had seen you speak in New York City, and basically you talked about how you thought it was a ripoff, that fans over the years repeatedly purchased the same albums on different formats, and they're getting less and less quality. And now with MP3s, there's 10% of the sound?
Well, that's just something we've had to live with. This whole digital era has been a disaster, and nothing we can do about it. Simple as that. People get used to the more mediocre sound of digital, and unfortunately, I believe that does have an effect on people's loyalty to the music and ability to repeat it, to play it over and over again and to enjoy it. Analog had a physical component to it. When you heard an analog record, it actually affected you physically, and digital does not. So you have a different thing to get used to, and you can still hear all the notes; they're all the same, but there's a different texture, a different communication going on scientifically that is not helping. It makes it that technology is not helping; it's working against us.
You have to be the gutsiest musician, or one of the gutsiest musicians out there. You never compromised. And here it is, 1984, the height of the E Street Band's popularity, and you quit the band to do your own thing.
Yeah. I just felt compelled to learn about the world. I had very much had tunnel vision my whole young life. All I cared about was becoming a rock and roll star, and I didn't care about anything else. Didn't pay attention in school. Well, then comes the river, and we finally have a hit on our fifth album.
Hungry Heart, right?
Yeah, which was the first record I produced for Bruce.
Was that really written for the Ramones?
Well, that's I've heard Bruce say that, so I think he might have had it in the back of his mind. It wasn't written for them because I was at rehearsal when he brought the song in.
Okay.
And we worked it up from nothing. So, at one point it became one of his 100 rejects or possible rejects of that new album. But we kept fighting for it, and I fought for it to get on the record, and we got it on. But yeah, he became so prolific in that period from 77,
so many songs didn't make the record. With the Darkness on the Edge of Town box set that came out, I remember you going on Fallon and saying, "This is 30 years of lost arguments."
Exactly. And that's what it is. And he started to have so many songs that he's looking for people to give them to. So I was not at all happy when he gave Patti Smith Because the Night. I worked very, very hard on that arrangement. like a week. It took a week, that arrangement. Very complicated song. And we worked on it at rehearsal. And I thought it was going to be our breakthrough record.
Okay.
And then next thing I know, he gave it away. In those days, the hit single had to come at the right time, and it had to be the right kind of hit single. It couldn't be a single that felt like you were being commercial for its own sake and selling out, so to speak,
Sure.
in those days. If you can imagine such a thing being a bad thing. But in those days, it was a bad thing. I mean, if you ever had a song on a commercial, your career was over in those days. It's just the opposite now, and you have to sort of adjust, because, like I said, if you had a song on a commercial during the rock era, your career was over. And now, if you don't have a song on a commercial, your career is in trouble. So it's like, it's the only way to make any money. All you can do in the end is not worry so much about the delivery system of everything and the technology, but just maintaining your highest possible standards and writing great songs.
Was it difficult doing that first show without Clarence?
Well, yeah. I mean, it was difficult doing a show without Danny.
Yeah.
You look over, I'm used to somebody, these guys being there. And,
Danny was actually in the band before Clarence.
Yeah, that's right. Danny goes back to at least Steel Mill.
Right.
Which was like 69, so he was playing with Bruce a good 3 years or so before Clarence. We managed to sort of handle the situation as best as we could with Danny, but with Clarence, we knew, okay, this is something that's so substantial, so profound, that we cannot continue the same way,
right?
Without him. So we had to literally reinvent ourselves. And maybe to the public eye, it may be a bit subtle. I don't know. But for us, we completely reinvented ourselves this year.
My wife and I had our first dance to Jungle Land, and I'm not gonna lie, I was a little taken back when I heard the E Street Band was coming back, and then my wife got us tickets for our honeymoon. Jake nailed the solo. You guys did Jungle Land for the first time in the States, and it was like, okay, you sold me. You immediately sold me. That is the E Street Band.
Yeah, well, the whole show, one of the two themes of this entire tour had to do with loss.
Right.
So Clarence's passing was an integral part of the show still. In other words, it wasn't like he was just mentioned once in the show. Sure. As some kind of tribute. The entire theme of this tour had him, present. And Bruce's incredibly eloquent, the raps he does on stage. He does in a couple places.
Before My City in Ruins.
Yeah, just talking about it, which people tend to take for granted because he does it so well that it seems almost spontaneous, or it just seems, it seems easy. But that stuff is as brilliant as his songwriting and as important, because you're having a conversation with our audience. Our audience, we're intimately involved with it. We have the greatest audience in the world, and it's a long relationship,
35 years and counting, right?
Yeah, and I mean, we built them one person at a time, so we feel like we know them, and they know us. So we are constantly having this conversation. It's why we always do a new album on every new tour, because, we keep moving forward, and our audience comes with us.
How is the new songs?
We never have been a nostalgia act, and we never will be. But this was a case where, we had to explain how, it's important to accept loss like this and make it work for you in a positive way. And that's a big, big theme, a big subject to talk about, because everybody has experiences loss, And what do you do in the face of loss? You have to find a way to keep going and have that spirit of whoever you have lost, stay with you and strengthen you every day, and that's heavy, heavy, heavy stuff. Sure. So we were able to do that, and with adding the horn section, adding the singers, doing a more literal translation of our soul roots for the first time. Now we're no longer, once removed from the soul music roots by being strictly a rock band, although we never quite were with the two keyboards. Right. We always had that gospel thing. That piano and organ always was a gospel. It's a gospel instrumentation. So we always had that. But now with the horns and singers and percussionists and all that, we have a much more literal translation of our soul roots. So it's a reinvention of ourselves, and I'm quite proud of the fact that we we're able to do that at this stage.
During the E Street Band shows, you feature fans will hold up signs and you'll do requests. Has any really blown you away yet?
Have they, when you challenge us, I mean? Like,
yeah, any of the signs that people hold up, did you ever think, man, what made you think of that song?
Every night. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's amazing the range of things you see out there. And that's just a real fun aspect of the show. I think we'll probably keep that to some extent in the show.
It's got to be some feeling to be like, oh my God, you guys did my song.
Yeah, well, yeah, that happens every single night. You'll have somebody, some very happy people who manage to get their song, get their request done. Yeah.
Well, before I wrap this up, I have to ask you where you have the time to do all this stuff, because you're also filming a TV show at the moment.
Yeah, I just got home. I got home Sunday from filming in Norway, and we had to open the Rascals on Monday. So, yeah, it's a second season of Lilyhammer for Netflix, and this second season is going to be quite good, I'm happy to say. That'll come out probably around January or so. Very, very big success. It's a local Norwegian TV show.
Okay.
So it's the first international, foreign TV show ever in history to be shown in the domestic country of Norway, in this case, and in America at the same time in the same configuration. In other words, everything else usually gets dubbed or gets remade.
Okay.
And this is actually in the same form. You see it in America the same way that Norwegians are seeing it on their local NRK station. And it's been a big success here. Over 2 million views on Netflix, and Netflix chose it as their first original programming. Now they have House of Cards as their second one.
Right.
But, that was big success here, and Norway broke the record, over 1 million viewers a week, and it's only 5 million people in the whole country, so 20% of the population watch the show, and or more. And, and it's now in 130 countries, so very, very big success, the most successful Norwegian export ever. It's been fun, and I'm really involved. I'm starring in it, I'm co-writing it, I'm co-producing it, and I'm very, very involved with it.
How has this experience differed from The Sopranos?
Oh, it's very, very different. I mean, just being so involved with the creative process, literally as co-writer and co-producer, it changes everything. And also starring in a show changes everything. I never really thought about it. I mean, I never even thought about acting before Sopranos.
Right.
So it's been a 10-year acting school with those guys, and what a wonderful acting school it was. You do a scene with Jimmy Gandolfini, and you walk away a better actor.
Okay. And
David Chase, of course, one of the great writers of all time. So, he set the standards way up, and I'm trying to just meet anywhere close to those standards with this show. So it's a very, very different experience, and even though I'm playing a gangster again, it's a very different gangster. It's a very different role, and able to have a lot of fun with it. The whole show is a little bit lighter, not quite a comedy, but what we call a dramedy,
right?
Where it's got serious moments, but overall it's a lighter sort of thing than Sopranos, and that's just been a ball. Just working in a foreign country, just that adventure I couldn't pass up.
Do fans still come up to you and ask you what really happened to Tony Soprano at the end of the series?
That's finally slowing down. It's been how long now? I don't know how long. 6, 7 years?
Yeah.
I don't know. It started slowing down after there was a big Vanity Fair article. I don't know if you saw it. Right when they went back and talked to all the actors from that time. Mm-hmm. And I kind of ended the article by giving the ultimate sort of answer to that question. They said, what actually happened at the end? And I ended the article by saying, what actually happened at the end of the show was the director yelled cut and the actors went home,
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like, this is a TV show, okay? And so it's been slowing down ever since then, but now, yeah, it's pretty much, I will, however, still get an occasional, when's the movie coming, which,
right.
Which, unfortunately, probably not going to happen ever.
Well, there's nobody left.
Yeah,
you're in a coma.
How do you do a movie when half the cast is dead? You're going to go, so yeah, it's a little bit more trickier than people think to actually, even if you wanted to do it, which nobody does.
Well, I have to thank you. Not only were your solo albums some of my favorite moments in music, and they've helped me a lot, but had you not quit the band, Bruce would have never wrote Bobby Jean, and I wouldn't have my favorite song of all time.
Well, anything for you, my friend.
I actually sign off by saying, "Gonna miss you, baby. Good luck, goodbye. See you tomorrow."
That's great.
Steve, I don't want to hold up too much of your time. So again, what's going on in the city with you and the Rascals?
Well, the Rascals, it's a 15-show limited engagement. I really recommend people to come see this. There's still a few tickets left. It's at the Richard Rogers Theater on 46th Street, very famous theater. It is quite an enjoyable experience, very entertaining. Whether you know the group or not, it's entertaining. It's one of the greatest groups of all time. I promise you, you will leave the show thanking me that you went, because you forget all the hits they had. And it's just something that may be the next evolution of concerts. I don't know. We'll see if it catches on, but it could be the next evolution for older acts anyway. With it having history, to integrate that history into a concert really makes the night more entertaining. And that's what we're doing, and it's the first of its kind. And come see it. I think it's going to be a historic run on Broadway, and it's just people are loving it.
Well, I'm going to go see the show on Saturday. I'm going to take my wife. The surprise is out of the bag because she's listening, but I can't pass up this opportunity. You're the one that got me into the Rascals.
Well, thank you for that, and I'm telling you, you won't be sorry.
And the river shall open for the righteous. Ladies and gentlemen, Little Steven Van Zandt.
Thank you, Brian.